Journeys Ahead, Lineage, Trilogy Finale. Show Her the Sunset. Written and narrated by yours truly, T.S. Pro Art. Thank you for listening. As the spark, star-shaped portal ignited to life within the reformator, he and a good chunk of his team stepped through, all except for Alfred, who opted to stay behind and keep an eye on Evelyn.
Uncle Void, we're in the lower sector. Why aren't we higher?
Joby asked as she, along with the others, took note of their surroundings. Red and orange lights glimmered along the ceiling and walls with flame-hued shines that casted warm shadows upon the heroes below. The metal floors and walls were tinted in a deep shade of red, while dangling wires and pipes jutted out of their sides. Even the thumper was cast within a crimson shade of color, minus its glowing cockpit and weapons. I transported us lower to avoid immediate detection. I'm going to go above and try and convince Core and Atlas to change their ways. Void explained as everyone turned to eye him. What about us? What do you want us to do? Jida asked with raised arms, while then taking a seat, breathing in and out to help ease the contractions within her stomach. If things severely backfire, then I'm going to need you guys to shut down or destroy the matter vat, wherever it may be. Void expressed while placing Joby down upon the floor. Would you have an idea on where it may be, kiddo? Her uncle inquired as all eyes fell upon her.
The very top. When the reformator charges, they essentially load the capsule all the way up to the machine's tip. It can actually be shut down manually if you can convince Father to do so. Although, he may not see eye to eye on that notion, Uncle Void.
Joby expressed while walking up and hugging his leg.
I also don't want you to get hurt.
Face furrowing to that of a wincing worry, Void knelt down and hugged his niece, rubbing her back and releasing a deep sigh. I'll be okay, kid. If I can get through to Evelyn, then I can get through to Atlas and your father. We'll be okay. All of us. Void assured while eyeing his wife, who nodded with small drops of sweat falling from her brow. Freckles? The spark questioned with a weary tone. I'm fine. It's just hot in here. Jida instantly replied, leaving Void to stand and approach her in gentle steps. She was lying. Jida couldn't overheat, Void thought. It was the baby, no doubt. You can say that again, hun. Sarv hooted out while fanning her face, leaving Tucker to wipe his brow beside her. Taking a kneel and placing his right hand over her left, Void found both their ring-donned fingers intertwining, glimmering gold rubbing up against glittering metal. Slowly, both their fingers interlocked, leaving them to press foreheads in a tender display of compassion. If things go south, Void began before Jida interrupted. Then I'll have your back, like always. Looking down, Void eyed Jida's so-called mama armor, noticing a faint hint of purple shimmering from in between the scales. He could sense it. The pulsation was strong, like the distant electricity one would feel before a storm. Their child was going to be here sooner than expected. All they could hope for was that it wouldn't be now or any point in the next hour and a half, for that's how much time was left on the clock. Reaching over, Void took Jida's other hand and gripped them both within his metal mitts, taking a long and shaken breath as he did so. We're gonna get through this. Just take it easy, for our sakes. Just take it easy. Void asked his wife, before raising her hands up and kissing them both. Of course, Blue. But if it's needed, just give us the word. Slowly nodding, Void took another breath and continued. I'll speak to you telepathically if so. He mentioned to all as the sparklet began to move. Walking up, Joby stood and then rested beside Jida, leaning her head against the fire wielder's shoulder. This small action left the musician a tad flustered, but passionate to the little one's sudden attachment. Slowly raising her right arm up and over, Jida put it over Joby's little form and pulled the sparklet close, embracing her in a motherly care.
Are you guys gonna have a boy or a girl?
Joby curiously asked while placing her tiny hand upon Jida's belly and feeling a connection to her cousin.
We don't know, sweetheart, but we will soon.
Jida replied while faking a smile through a tight and numbing contraction.
Very, very soon.
Nodding and standing back to his feet, Void looked at everyone in the room and asked with a stern face, "Please, keep an eye on her." To these words, Tucker and Sarv nodded, along with Nock and Cotton the Thumper.
Of course, sir.
Jay replied with a bow, while Coco fist bumped her chest with a stern smile.
Auntie Coco reporting for duty!
She exclaimed, while Pofnu even rested over both Jida's and Joby's legs. Nodding once again in a thankful stare, Void turned to his side, seeing a large elevator pad that would lead into an upper sector. Taking in a long thought of woe, the spark approached the pad, but stopped upon hearing Jida's voice calling out to him. "Void!" Her voice came as crisp and enticing as ever. Turning around with his glittering blue eyes, he interlocked his with hers, hearing 3 words that had been keeping him upright for the last few years. "I love you," she stated, leaving the spark to smile and respond the same. "I love you too," he stated before stepping into the elevator and rising upwards, heading to the next few floors above. Arriving upon a floor several layers above, Void found himself in the last sector of the reformattor's musky bottom half. Before his oval-shaped eyes stretched out a long hallway that was connected to a vented floor. Within these grated platforms below, illuminated pulses of blue and orange matter waves of energy, arising flickers of small strands of energy to whiz past the spark above. The same energy pulsated within the panel lines along the walls that looked to all stretch around like a zigzagging maze. Ignoring these details and looking ahead, Void locked his sights upon an open archway entry that appeared to lead into a room that was glowing a pure pumpkin shade of orange. With a furrowed brow, the blue-crested spark began to make his way down the large hall. Each footfall from his boots created an echoed chime that bounced off the walls that stung the spark's tiny hole-like ears. The heat from below had also carried its way over to the higher sector. Steam spurted from pipes, and temperature valves looked to spike near the 70s atop fuse boxes. Yet this didn't stop Void in his mission, who continued onward and entered the room ahead. Well, now ain't this just spiffy? The spark muttered aloud as he took in his surroundings. The room he stood within was designed in a large dome shape, being the size of a gym you'd find in a high school. Below his feet was a massive circular gate that had rounded metal circles to hold it in place. Beneath this metal emanated a pure glow of orange magma matter that was slightly overshadowed by a massive, slowly spinning fan below. The walls themselves were made of pure bronze that had jutting power tubes and cables, all stretching to the ceiling above, which was shadowed in pure darkness. Craning his head back forwards, Void took notice of a sealed door with the words, "Main Level Elevator," written above in his native species text. There it was, he thought, another elevator that would mask his sneaky venture forwards. Adjusting his shoulders and cracking his neck, Void began to march his way towards his next ascension point, but then stopped upon feeling that some kind of presence had entered the room. Completely halting in all forms of movement, Void took a second to both listen and get a feel for his surroundings. Although no sound was made, Void could feel a lingering pair of eyes watching him from behind. Craning his own eyes to the side without turning his head, Void's senses kicked into an overdrive as the slightest sound was made, that being the noise of a dart or projectile being fired off. With the speed of a leopard, Void turned his body and caught what was flying right towards him. Barely an inch away from his neck, Void caught another sleeping syringe, glimmering green with an enticing toxin for anyone who couldn't have gotten a good night's rest. Wincing with an angered expression, Void turned with the needle in hand towards the orange glows behind himself, only to see Atlas, lashed upon the back wall like a spider.
Ah, shit. Sorry, kid. I was really hoping that would have hit.
The larger spark muttered out, knowing that his cover had been blown. With an angry tilt in his head, Void crushed the vial within his hand and threw its liquidy broken glass aside, while proceeding to fully face his large, multi-legged companion. With a grunt and leap, Atlas jumped from the wall and landed with a metallic thud upon the gated floor. As the bigger, more arachnid-looking spark fully stood to his feet, Void instantly took notice of his condition. Atlas was now dented and bruised, his green paint now scratched, his eyes baggy with a lack of sleep. Yet worst of all was the fact that his left largest horn had now been reduced to a ripped stump, dried with blue blood from the night prior. Tilting his head and slowly approaching with caution, Void reached a small hand gesture forward and asked, "Atlas, what happened to you?" Releasing a deep sigh and lighting a cigarette to his mouth, Atlas tiredly eyed Void before beginning to walk in a circular formation, in turn, leaving Void to do the same, staying several feet apart along the walls.
Your brother. That's what happened.
Wincing, Void looked to the ground and then back upon his fellow Spark, beginning to speak up again while trying to find his words. "And yet you're still comfortable doing this? Destroying a world like ours all those years back?" Void asked, leaving Atlas to pull out his little wad of tobacco and blow the smoke into the air.
You want to know something funny, kid? I actually tried to tell your brother off after you and Kid tucked tail and left. But that thread of trying to be better led to this.
Alice expressed as he took out his cigarette and shoved its burning end upon his cracked horn, trying to possibly cauterize the wound. "Then why are you still trying to enact this path of destruction? If he did that to you, why are you in here and not out there, helping people as you did in Leo?" Void questioned as he eyed the green beads still resting over Atlas's neck. Raising his right hand up, Atlas clutched these offers in a tight hold, with the look of regret fueling in his eyes. Although he didn't show it visibly like Evelyn, the look of confliction was more readily apparent in Atlas than he'd seen the show. His eyes, they told a different story.
Because I'm just as responsible as Core. To just walk away. To turn on my best friend. After all the horrible acts I've committed. All the death I've caused. It'd be for nothing. And our species would cease to be. It'd be killing two birds with one stone, kid.
Atlas regretfully explained his reasoning while eyeing Void down once again. Holding his breath, the smaller Spark glanced between Atlas and then down to his own necklace, before beginning to speak up yet again. "Would you believe me if I told you I got Evelyn to stop? To lay her weapons down? To change?" Void asked, leaving a huff of smoke to leave through the barely visible nostrils on Atlas's face.
Is that so? Where is she then?
He asked with a dried-out tone. "Still outside, collecting her thoughts." "You don't believe me, do you?" Void questioned as Atlas eyed him in a dour glare.
It's hard to. Especially after all we've done and what we still have to do. Because if we don't...
Atlas replied as he activated the hilt to his double-bladed katana.
I'm fairly certain Core would just kill us.
With a bright green ignition, both the spark's green blades appeared with an electrical hum that turned the orange room into that of a mix of earth and fire shades of color.
I love her more than anything, Void. She's my world, and all I want is for us to be happy. But in order to do so, orders must be followed, and mine right now are to knock you out cold.
Atlas finished before twirling his blades around and readying himself in a samurai-esque pose. Sighing with a sorrowful stare, Void threw his arms out at his sides and activated his Nova Blades, proceeding to ready himself as well.
Atlas, there's a whole world on your shoulders. Not just hers, but mine.
You can either stop now and walk a different path, or continue down the same road and feel the guilt of senseless death grow within your soul.
You're a spark, not a monster.
Void tried to reason, but the larger spark merely shook his head in dismay.
I wish that were true, little buddy. But this goal to save our race has turned me into what can only be claimed as what you say I'm not.
Atlas retorted as his battle mask sealed tightly over his face.
You're wrong, Atlas.
Your story is still being written. It doesn't have to end like this. If Ev can see that there's hope, then so can you. Deploying his battle mask as well, Void glared upon Atlas, his blue eyes meeting that of the other's greens. Without saying another word, Atlas gripped his katana tightly and lunged forward at a remarkable speed, beginning a fight that Void truly didn't want. With a violent twirl in his blades, Atlas spun both of their electrical ends down upon Void, who quickly ducked out of the striking range. As he did, the smaller spark twirled his lower torso around in an electrical blowback that Atlas just barely evaded from. As Void stood back into an upright position, Atlas lunged back again, but with an onslaught of strikes. Swinging down with his upper katana half, he bashed down upon Void's swords, before spinning his blades once more and repeating the process, trying not to kill the smaller spark, but rather attempting to wear him down. Practically dancing around one another, Void ducked backwards from another slash above his head, only to find himself within the center of the room. Taking his chance, the smaller spark began his own strike back and began his own power set of blows. Swinging his blades around, slashing and bashing from his left to right, Void delivered a wave of powerful clashes upon Atlas's katana. The two evaded around each other's weapons, creating a beautiful sight of blues and green flickers of light back against the hellish glow surrounding them. With a huff, Void crouched and then leapt forward towards his taller, four-legged foe. Twirling through the air, the spark swung his legs and feet with an electrical pulse that nearly clocked Atlas in the face. But the larger spark was quick to evade and found himself back in a readied stance. As Void landed, he rose both of his blades up and clashed down hard upon Atlas's returning swing, engaging the two of them into another twirl of dancing stabs. Now releasing a small shout from his lips, Atlas charged his horns to that of a red glow, and released a small angered pulse upon Void, causing him to stumble back and lose a bit of balance. Taking his chance, Atlas side-charged the spark, and punched him in the face with an accompanied slash to his right arm. Although not cutting it off entirely, Atlas merely sliced his blade through the roof of Void's hand, causing his energized blade to short-circuit and dissolve from sight, leaving only his left one activated. Ugh! Stumbling back in a pained shout, Void nearly fell to the floor, but maintained his footing and deflected a series of mighty blows. With one bash after the other, Atlas smashed his weapons down upon Void's remaining blade, leaving the smaller spark to both deflect and dodge. Stay focused, Void told himself. Don't lose your footing. Taking notice of a power box on the wall behind Atlas, Void quickly threw his right arm forward, shooting out his hook and lashing upon the metal. Atlas, in response, dodged the hook, but was quickly met with a harsh hit in the back of his head, for Void yanked the box free and sent it smashing into Atlas's skull. Stepping back from each other, the two sparks now circled one another. During this, Void brought forth his second hook blade as opposed to having his Nova ones out instead.
Atlas,
I know it seems like you're stuck, but you can still break free from this cycle. I want to see your people thrive again as much as you do, but this isn't the way to do it. Please, put your weapon down. It doesn't have to be this way. Void boasted, leaving Atlas to feel his gears turn in his head. Open your eyes, kid. I can't just walk away from what I've done. The only option is to move forward. Atlas boasted as he readied himself once again. Then let's move forward in a different path. I told Evelyn this as well, but doing the right thing, it can be scary. Let me help guide you out of this darkness. Void boasted before Atlas struck again. Engaging each other, the two sparks clashed upon one another, blades interlocking in ways that most swordsmen would find jealous. Spinning his torso around, Atlas began to quickly swing his katana at a rapid pace, causing Void to backflip several times out of the way. Once their trail of movement stopped, the two blade locked each other in a powerful display of strength, blue reflecting green, until Void suddenly overpowered Atlas in a hard push. Once knocking the larger spark back, Void charged a wave of electricity into his right fist, leapt up, and smashed it hard against Atlas's face, sending him falling to the ground in a painful stripe. Landing back down, Void eyed the slowly getting up spark with a wince. Turning his head, Atlas deactivated his battle mask and glared upon Void with a set of shimmering green eyes. Then, without breaking eye contact, he spat out one of his teeth, which then clicked upon the metal grate. I am so sorry. Void muttered, feeling a cold sweat pour down his brow. With a teeth-baring snarl, Atlas quickly flipped himself up and landed upon his two front hands. Swaying his lower metallic half around, the larger spark instantly began to rotate his torso and bring forth the tiny turrets that rested within his claw-like feet. Eyes widening, Void quickly activated his Novaroon shield that began to take the brunt force of Atlas's turret form. You can't bring back the countless worlds that were destroyed, Void! You can't just walk away from your actions! Atlas cried out as he began to leap from side to side upon his hands, all while Void maneuvered around to knock it shot down. I'm not asking you to forget, Atlas! I'm asking you to stop now while you still have the chance! Our past shapes our future. We learn from it, grow from it. If you take the step to change the course now, you'll save countless lives. Don't repeat your mistakes. Void tried to reason, sending the four-legged spark back upon his toes and launching towards Void. Deactivating his katana, Atlas instead chose to summon a large green Novaroon and clashed it down upon Void's, causing a small blowback to occur and sending the smaller spark hitting the wall hard. Even if I were to stop, what comfort would it bring? What peace of mind would I have? Atlas asked as he reached down the Void, only to slam throw him into the other wall. How would I sleep knowing I destroyed for nothing? Weakly getting up on his hands and knees, Void winced behind the mask and spoke up once more in a tired breath. You'd have comfort in the fact that you stood up and did the right thing. Void choked out as Atlas began to approach. Do you really want to say you helped make a civilization through an empire of death? Or would you rather put an end to the misery and lay all those souls you helped take to rest? Void croaked out as Atlas stopped and looked upon his battered little form. Why do I deserve to do the right thing, Novasun? To have a chance at change? People like me, we destroyers, we don't deserve to be forgiven. We deserve to be damned to the shades. Atlas called as he activated another sleeping syringe. We don't get second chances, he expressed while reaching down and gripping Void's neck. Lifting the smaller spark up, the two of them locked eyes as Atlas got ready to inject Void. However, falling to silence as the sound of a voice calling out got the spark's attention. Yes, we do! Turning his head, Atlas looked behind himself, seeing none other than Evelyn, standing beside her own star-shaped portal, having Alfred with her with his arms crossed. We do, Atlas. We do. Put him down. She asked with both of her arms raised towards her love in a worried posture. In stunned silence, Atlas looked from Evelyn and then towards Void, proceeding to gently lower him back to the ground with a hint of confusion.
Evelyn?
Atlas asked as both her and Alfred approached with quick steps. Running up, the sharp-tailed spark embraced Atlas's battered form, while Alfred knelt down to help Void stand.
You all right, Nova-san?
The bird asked as he helped Void to his feet.
Better than before,
he replied before looking up upon his fellow sparks.
Evelyn, what are you talking about?
Atlas asked out with a softer voice as the two rocked in each other's arms. Change. Don't you see it? Void is giving us the chance to change. Evelyn replied while reaching up to caress Alice's face. Look at us. Look at what we've become. Destroying worlds. Hurting innocent people. Our own kind. Evelyn went on as she turned her eyes upon Void, leaving Atlas to do the same. Is this what we want a generation to learn about? Or would we even have enough strength to lie to their small faces? This, all of this, it's wrong. And you know this. Evelyn continued as she leaned up against Alice's large build.
Ev, how do we turn heel after everything we've done?
Alice asked as his rage subsided and fell to that of a pure state of conflicted nature. Because your stories are still being written. Void stated aloud while clutching his abdomen. China once told me that we write our own stories. We don't allow others to control who we are. A core made you guys do what you believe to be right. It doesn't have to be your legacy. Void expressed as he looked to the elevator. And it doesn't have to be his either. Looking on with tired eyes, Atlas eyed Void and then the beads around his neck once again, remembering the joy he felt upon saving lives instead of taking them. Now with both Void and Evelyn telling him the same things, Atlas suddenly began to feel a small weight lift off his chest. Was it truly possible to change? He asked within.
How does one just change?
He asked, feeling his legs ever so slightly buckle. Turning back to face his fellow sparks, Void nodded towards them and spoke aloud. Through little steps, Atlas. You can start by calling off your monsters outside. You're both their generals, right? Get out there and command them to stop. Start by saving lives you can in the moment. Void boasted, leaving the lovebirds to stare and then slowly nod their heads.
It won't erase the years of damage and death I've caused, Void.
Alice retorted as he then looked to the floor in shame. But it can be the start of years worth of rebuilding. Our mistakes, they shape our future. Other people would take you out on the spot, but I'm probably the only one who'd be willing to give you guys this chance. You're my family too, and I know there's good in you both. Void said with a tired smile and burning belief in his heart. Now, get out there and prove it to yourselves. Show this world who you really are. Slowly approaching, Atlas raised his right hand out and gently placed it upon Void's shoulder, who then deactivated his mask to look upon Atlas with his own eyes.
Kid, you truly have grown into a spark, worthy of your father's name.
Alice expressed as he bowed his head in an honoring sense. No, I'm just someone who's trying to do the right thing. And now you can do that too. Void assured before looking back towards the elevator doors. Do you really think you could convince Core, little one? Evelyn asked, as everyone now looked upon the doors as well. It may take some force, Void said as he activated his matter extractor. But if anyone is capable of getting him to stop, it would be me. Void assured as everyone eyed the orange device upon his arm. Alfred, join up with the others below. And you two, get out of here. Void asked towards the three behind him, who all nodded with understanding eyes. As Alfred teleported away, Evelyn turned and shot a portal open to the city outside, while Atlas nodded towards Void once more. Kid, if shit hits the fan, just give us a holler. He's our friend too. The four-legged Spark said before stepping through. Good luck, little one, and thank you. Evelyn called as the two Sparks looked at one another with a newfound sense of hope, jumping back to the city outside. Now alone, Void turned his sights fully towards the elevator and proceeded to raise his arm up and give a message to those below. Good news. I was able to convince Atlas. Now on my way to find Core. Stay low until I give the possible word. Void messaged through before taking a long breath and approaching the elevator, knowing full well where Core may possibly be within the Reformattor's titanic build. Rising up with silence, Void watched as he passed floor after floor, light upon light, lab to lab, until at last, he reached the long pathway that he and the others walked across only a few days ago. With clenched fists, he traversed across the large bridge, noticing that the once blue and orange lights were slowly turning to a pure orange state of color. Sweat continued to pour down Void's brow as he allowed himself to heal mid-stride. Nearing the last elevator, the younger Nova Sun stood upon its platform and found himself rising once more, this time to where he figured that Core would be. Each second felt like a minute. The Spark was tense, scared but hopeful. These are the emotions that stabbed in the Void's soul as he at last reached the top, the place where the matter vat once stood. But now in its place was an almost heavenly strand of whirling light that stretched down to the killing spike below. Whizzes of reds, greens, yellows, oranges, blues, and purples made up the emanating source, creating a stark contrast against the orange fluorescent lights from all around. But there, as predicted, was Core, standing in front of his little control pad and facing away from his brother. With a gulp and quick breath, Void readied his matter extractor and approached Core. He had to get the darkness out of him, Void told himself. He wasn't sure how Core would be if he were to attack with that form of his. In truth, Void wasn't exactly certain on how Core would react to his presence. So much had happened the day prior that Void was unclear if his brother would be more passive or aggressive. However, his thoughts would soon come to a close, for the other Spark spoke aloud. Void, welcome back. Core exclaimed in a voice that was like nails to a chalkboard. It sounded rough, tired, a complete contrast to the way he spoke the day prior. Slowly turning around, Core Novasun faced his little brother with burning, orange glowing eyes. Bags seeped under these oval shapes, while his horns and metal panel lines pulsated the same color. Even small wisps of smoky black smog drifted around his arms and legs, making him almost appear phantom-like in nature. Core. Void returned as he stopped about 10 feet or so away from one of his last remnants of the past. I take it that you've come all this way to stop me. Core assumed, cutting right to the chase while staring on with one of the most deadpan faces Void had ever seen. Core looked lost, torn, and stressed. It was a mixed bag, a shakeup within his head, but Void could see it. a faint but glimmering hope to change for his brother. He could come back, come to his senses. All it needed was a good talking, he thought. You could say that, Void replied as he slowly approached his brother with stern eyes. Kor, you know as well as I do. All of this is wrong. With a slow blink and look to the side, Kor broke his eye contact with his little brother and then quickly retorted in his own way.
You don't need to repeat yourself. I heard your little spills towards Atlas and Evelyn through their comms. I get it. You think I can change, that I can turn this all around through the power of love and friendship. Whatever heroic nonsense you spill from your lips.
Kor exclaimed while reaching a hand out and feeling the strands of energized matter flowing to the extractor point below.
I know you see me as a monster.
Kor tried to continue before Void suddenly spoke right back. But you're not. You walked a path that you thought to be right. You think what you're doing now is okay, but... Whirling around with a flaming pulsation in his panel lines, Kor's eyes flared with an audible growl escaping his maws, resulting in his words coming back through in an aggressive manner.
I know I'm not a monster!
Kor roared, causing Void to take a cautious step back.
I'm a scientist,
he stated before returning back to normal.
Void, the greatest outcomes in life, they all came from the mightiest of sacrifices. Every way of life, from country to family, it all starts with bloodshed. If it means this world has to die to save our species from extinction, to make sure my daughter is safe, then it's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. A sacrifice that I would be most appreciative if you were at my side with.
Slowly stepping forward with his burning eyes, Kor extended his hand out towards Void, all while the wisps of darkness continued to surround his form.
Don't you get it? I can give the gift of life to a new age. If I stop now, then we will be the last of a bygone lineage. The natural order of the sparks will be no more. And I want you to be by my side, to help guide the next generation to a brighter path.
Kor expressed with a shaken tone as his eyes gently furrowed back to a normal state.
You, your wife, your friends, your unborn baby, whoever you care about most, I will make sure they are safe before extraction. I can take you all to a new world, an identical one to this one if you so wish. It would be as though nothing had ever changed.
Kor tried to reason as Void eyed his hand that was noticeably shaking.
Together, me, you, Atlas and Evelyn, we can lead a new age, the next generation of hope for all realities. We can be family again.
For a long moment, Void eyed Kor's palm. His mind was racing, heart beating like a war drum. Although Kor sounded affirmative in his words, the crackings of a broken soul that was unsure to it all was audibly there. Small, but begging to be let out, hoping the louder voice to be proven wrong. The Kor Void knew was still in there somewhere, and he would have to get him out, no matter what. Without warning, Void thrusted his matter extractor forward and stabbed Kor in his hand. In response, the larger spark shot with a burning essence and knocked Void back with a tendril shooting from his free hand. Falling backwards with a grunt, Void quickly got back upon his feet and glared with disappointment upon Kor, or rather, what was concealing his true self within. I would love nothing more than to be a family again, but not like this. I will never stand for the destruction of an innocent world, even if it's to benefit our people, Void retorted as Kor glared back upon him with his burning orange eyes. Mother and father taught us that no life should be discarded, that everyone deserves a chance, even if countless variations exist. The spark went on as his body buzzed to life with a pure state of blue energized electricity. You're lying to yourself, Kor. I can hear it. You still have time to shut the machine down. Please don't make me do this, Void pleaded as he readied his fist.
I can't. I've worked for over a decade to reach this point. I won't stop now.
Core returned as his body slowly morphed into his dark matter form, horns sprouting and glowing eye and all.
Don't make me do this.
Core then repeated as his finger claws extended out in the sharp, crystallized daggers. There's good in you. I know there is, was the last word Void was able to get out before the two sparks kicked off their heels and charged towards one another.
China, everyone, get to the roof, now!
Void called telepathically through his mind, instantly getting those below on their feet, while the first blow was given back from above. Lunging forward with both fists raised, the two brothers clashed their knuckles down upon one another, creating an impulse of both blue and orange energy to erupt out like a tidal wave. This impact alone left the lights from around to flicker and the matter strands to ignite into a brighter shade of light, signifying that the two beings of power had truly begun their battle.
If it's a fight you want, then it's a fight you'll get!
Core exclaimed with his demonic-sounding tone as he whirled a transforming right arm around that took the form of a wrecking ball of dark matter slime. This bulbous attack, although short-lived, held orange crystal spikes within that all rose up and clashed into the metal flooring, leaving Void to quickly evade with a sideways flip. Please, remember everything we've been through! Void tried to reason before activating his arm cannons and shooting bolts of electricity in the core, in hopes to stun him down. In response, the older Novasun roared with his burning orange eyeball and rammed both of his hands into the ground. Without warning, sharp spikes of darkness erupted from the metal floorboards that Void quickly evaded from, going around the ring-like platform that surrounded the matter within the center. Void leapt and flipped, all in a vain hope to not be skewered alive. Is this what you think Mom and Dad would have wanted? Do you think they would have stood for this if they were still here? Void asked as he quickly landed and ran back around upon Core. As Void neared, he smashed his fist into the ground, creating a wave of electricity into his body that only stunned the older spark for a moment.
They would have understood, but then again, we can't speak for the dead, can we?
Core bellowed with a mighty shout before rushing for Void with his claws outstretched. Instantly swinging from his left and right, Core attempted to claw his brother in an animalistic strike, leaving Void to only dodge and deflect with Nova Rune shields and his wits. Maybe not, but we can speak for what they stood for, and this isn't it. You know that! Void called before pushing a Nova Rune forward and bashing its backside, creating a shockwave blowback upon his older brother. In retaliation, Core's eyes widened with a burning surge that sent a wave of orange energy to course across his skin. Throwing his arms out at his sides, Core bellowed a mighty scream that caused slimy dark matter spikes to burst from his body, making him look akin to a porcupine. Batira's might! Void cried back as he flipped himself out of the way.
Why are you fighting me? You know this is the only way, Void! We're so close!
Core called before lunging upon Void like a lion pouncing upon a zebra. Because you're giving me no choice! Void retorted before headbutting Core in his massive iris. From this attack, Void felt the grip upon him loosen, resulting in his escape. With a small pulse in his horns, Void blasted Core off his body and opened the doorway to strike. Activating his matter extractor, Void quickly got to his feet and charged the large eye within Core's mouth. Like the conductors, it was the brightest light within the body, meaning only one thing. Quickly running forward, Void readied his weapon and lunged upon Core, only to suddenly be blown back by a massive surge of orange Nova energy from his brother's horns. Shouting in pain, Void found himself crashing into one of the nearby labs, breaking through the glass and landing hard upon a metal table, breaking apart testing tubes and capsules and the like.
I can bring back everything we lost! Everything that was ripped away from us! From you! Yet, you choose to throw it away over one little world!
Core bellowed as he fully stood back upon his feet, glimmering brightly as dark matter flowed through his monstrous veins. A world full of life! Void retorted before shooting his arms forward and launching out of the lab like a slingshot, receiving the strike core right in his abdomen with a ferocious kick. Both crashing over one another, the two brothers eyed each other down, while Void suddenly took notice of an elevator rising up from behind, one that Core didn't notice. On it, everyone stood, going up and up to the very top of the reformator. Although he only saw them for a moment, the look of dread in Jida and Joby's eyes upon seeing him and Core truly set things in motion, that whatever would happen in the coming minutes wouldn't be pretty. Reaching his arm out, Core caught Void's distracted form and slammed him harshly upon the floor, proceeding to then whirl him around and throw him against the platform rail. With a pained grunt, Void fell upon his hands and knees, all while Core approached him once more.
Your new family has poisoned your mind, made you forget where you come from. What makes Jida so special compared to your own kind?
Core asked in a bellow, before charging Void, horns first. Getting up in the nick of time, Void caught Core's dagger like horns before any lethal damage could have been dealt. Grunting, the smaller spark pushed back with all his might, leaving Core to snarl and drool from his iris.
No, they haven't. They saved me. Jida saved me. Just like I'll save you. It's not too late to stop this.
Void cried before opening his chest and releasing a wave of rockets upon his brother, causing him to stumble back yet again. Taking another chance, Void leapt forward with his fist of electricity and began to smash them in the Core's body. With right hooks and left hooks, Void clashed his metal digits over his brother's monstrous form, over and over, leaving the older of the two to grow angrier and angrier to the circumstances. Roaring again, Core extended out two tendril hands from his back and gripped Void by the head, proceeding to whirl and throw him down once more in a skidding slide.
Am I not good enough for you? Am I not good enough for my own daughter? Are my sacrifices nothing to you?
The monster cried before clashing his own fist down upon Void, sending the brothers into a punching spree. You're my brother, Core! My best friend! You're everything to me! But this kind of power, this mission you have, you've gotta let it go! Look at yourself! Is this who you truly want to be? A monster? Void asked as he attempted to ram his matter extractor into his brother's eye once more.
I am no monster!
Within seconds, Void found himself getting entangled in a web of darkness. His arms were halted to his sides, while his legs were mushed together like glue. Now, rising like a king to a podium, Core, with a mound of darkness below his feet, pulled Void close and snarled in his face. Core, you were the glue that once held our family together. Please, don't do this. Void pleaded as a faint line of orange tears bellowed on the corners of Core's massive eye.
It's too late for me, Void.
The older Novason quietly muttered as anger and hatred soon took over the remorse that started to break through.
I can't let you stop me.
He went on before beginning to strangle Void to knock him out cold.
Core?
Void wheezed out as his vision began to blur. However, just as Void neared the brink of unconsciousness, a sudden alert blurted out from the intercoms, exclaiming the following.
Alert! End container systems breached.
With his massive eyeball widening, Core turned to look upwards and then back upon Void with the most heinous scowl he had ever seen.
What did you do?
He asked, as Void began to fade between being awake and unconscious. The tight restraint around his neck, mixed with that of the dark matter fumes, created an almost drugging sensation that left his body going numb and tired for the time being. The smaller spark gasped out, leaving Core to snarl and look upwards. Bursting from his back arose several large dark tendril strands of black energy that he used to begin climbing the reformator, going up and up to reach the very top where the matter capsule resided.
Come on, Jet. Work with me here.
Nock asked aloud as he, Ka, and Jet attempted to crack the code upon the matter vat's control deck. Snow and glimmering golden sunlight blasted down upon the glass above their heads, all while Jida, Joby, Coco, Pofnu, Sarv, Tucker, and now Alfred stood watch.
The code of this thing, it's something I can't fully decipher. I don't understand what I'm reading.
Jed exclaimed as the Mattervat system was made up with living strands of both light and dark, a non-technical code, rather an organic one that linked itself to the machine.
Give Void time. I'm sure he'll be able to get through the core.
Jida assured with a yell, while Joby suddenly perked up with a golden glow to her horns. Looking down, Jida eyed her niece's sudden reactive sense and asked, "Joby, what's wrong, sweetie?" Before wincing with another splitting surge in her belly.
Father.
She replied, when from below, about 50 feet away, the metal plates upon the floor bursted open with a metallic tearing rip. Turning their heads, everyone watched on in horror as the disgusting matter form of Core arose out into the open like a spider leaving its web. Leaping up with Void's unconscious body grasped tightly within his hand, Core landed with a growl and eyed everyone beside the matter vat, until at last, seeing Joby huddling beside Jida's leg. Roaring in anger, Core threw Void forward and sent him crashing into a stack of fuse boxes, cutting him out of the fight for who knew how long. "Void!" Jida cried in shock, while everyone else either looked on in disbelief or shouted as well to the sudden toss.
Get away from that!
Core roared with fury towards Void's family as his horns ignited with a hellish haze. "Jida, check on him!" Coco suddenly cried before readying her staff and rushing towards Core.
We'll cover you!
Tucker added as him and Sarv joined the frog's charge. Alfred as well, ready to spear, and went forth as well.
Uncle Void!
Joey cried out as she quickly ran towards the fuse boxes, with both Jida and Pavnu in tow. Hopping inside the metal black box that shimmered with blue energy, Jida slid over to his lump body and took a kneel, shaking her husband as well. He was still breathing, but severely out of it, like he had been hit with a sleeping gas toxin.
No, Void! Get up! We need you now! Like, right now!
Jida begged as Coco, Tucker, Sarv, and Alfred began their attack on Core.
Have at thee, you monster.
The Crescent roared as he leapt upwards to stab Core in his eye, but was quickly knocked aside by one of his swinging tendrils. The hit itself had been so hard that the bird went flying back and struck the glass window, causing it to crack and instantly put Alfred out of the fight. Before Tucker or Sarv could even get a shot off, Core slammed both of his hands down to the ground and raised a pair of massive fists from them, striking the married pair in their lower jaws and throwing them aside.
Out of my way!
Core screamed as he began to march his beastly self towards the three tech whizzes by the matter vat. Just then, Coco leapt in with a smirk and struck Core across the face, proceeding to get a few quick kicks in as well. But like the others, Coco was quickly taken out. Reaching forward, Core caught the young frog with a tight grasp, causing her to ribbit and curse under her breath.
Oh shit.
Throwing her hard, Core sent Coco flying and hitting an upper walkway, putting her out of the fight as well. Looking over her shoulder with a worried stare, Jida cursed under her breath and summoned a wave of her fire to her energy. Alongside this, she pulled out her guitar, holding it like an axe.
Go. I can help him.
Joby exclaimed while looking at her aunt with determined eyes. Looking back, Joby placed both of her hands upon Void's chest and ignited them to life with a light matter energy, in a vain hope to awaken him. At this moment, the blue electricity that sparked within the box looked to suddenly get drawn into Joby's life essence. It was as though she was drawing it to go into her uncle's heart. Looking between Core and then the Joby, Jida nodded before fully turning back around and leaping into the fray. Landing hard a few feet in front of Core with her guitar out and ready, she activated its sides to ignite with two burning blades that were ready to strike.
Jida, get out of my way!
Core roared with an outrageous pulsation of energy that caused his entire body to glimmer orange. Scowling, Jida gripped her guitar tightly and readied herself for a battle without warping, knowing full well that would be difficult when pregnant. "I'm afraid I can't do that, Core," she replied, fully readying herself. Roaring and charging forward with a burning step, Core went on the offense, while Jida took a breath and leapt upwards with a powerful swing, slashing Core across the face with her guitar. Without wasting a second, Jida spun around and clashed weapons back down hard upon the rest of his skull. Landing to her feet, Jida swung her guitar back around and strummed its strings, creating a blast of cosmic fire to erupt from the tune it created. "Get back!" Jida shouted with fear, while feeling another burning contraction in her stomach. Regaining his focus and healing over, Core whirled himself back around and summoned a Nova Rune from his fist. Not even a second after, a yellow and orange beam shot out from its center that Jida quickly evaded and ducked from.
You have no quarrel in being here, Jida. Move out of the way so I can save my people.
Core boasted before ceasing his blast and smashing down with two massive forms of matter from his hands. Summoning a wave of fire, Jida deflected the blast, but found herself stumbling back in an awkward stupor. "You don't care about the sparks! You only care about yourself!" Jida called back as Core attempted to strike down in a crushing matter blow.
Selfish! You believe me to be selfish?
Core asked as Jida flipped out of the way with another attack. "Yeah! You lied to us! All of us! Your own brother! You only think for yourself instead of those around you! Look at my world! You promised us no harm would come to it!" Jida bellowed as the two then caught each other's fists. "I may be no spark, but from what I've learned, you're the exact opposite of what Void has taught me of his people," Jida expressed, giving Core his chance to bark back.
You changed, Void. Made him soft. Made him forget his own flesh and blood.
Core bellowed, getting the upper hand over Jida. "What the hell are you talking about?" Jida called back as she quickly regained the upper hand by sending a burning surge of energy to explode from her hair.
Your world confuses him. All of you have changed him.
Core called as he slowly got back upon his feet. "How can you even call yourself a spark? Are you hearing yourself? You're the one who's confused. You're the one who's forgotten your own flesh and morals!" Jida screamed while throwing her arms out her sides. "While you were busy killing, Void was busy saving. The fact that he even considered for a second that he'd join you is ludicrous." With a grumbling snarl, Core looked to the side in deep thought, for the small voice within continued to call out to him once more. The voice of reason, perhaps change. "You may not like me, but you can listen. You can still stop this, Core. Don't let my world fall like yours did." Jida pleaded with Void's reasoning. However, at the mention of Salvaheim, Core whirled himself back around and shot forwards a long strand of dark matter that smashed Jida's body backwards and sent it flying and smashing hard, denting into one of the fuse boxes that sat beside Void. "Jida! Creator!" Everyone at the matter vat cried out as they stood to their feet, realizing it was now up to them. Together, the three tech wizards advanced upon Core, but to their dismay, were easily overpowered. With a hard whirl, Core swung his matter arms around and knocked Jet out of the sky. Nock and Kot were both able to get a few punches in, but the larger spark was already one step ahead. With one quick whirl, Core maneuvered forward and ran both of his hands into the abdomen of the machine, proceeding to then tear it in half with one pull. Yelling, both Nock and Kot fell to the ground and instantly looked upon Core, who with one kick sent Kot flying towards the fuse boxes as well, in turn sending a burning rage to enter Nock's soul.
You son of a...
The mechanic cried out as he raised a fist back to punch Core, only to then feel the most numbing and burning pain he had ever felt. With one quick slash, Core swooped his claws down upon the mechanic and sent him flying backwards and towards Kot. Yet, as he landed, Nock was only focused upon one thing. For all the pain, it was within his right hand. Or rather, what should have been there. It was gone. Core's strike had been so strong that one of his claws completely severed the mechanic's hand like a knife to hot butter. Glancing from his stump and then to his limb on the other side of the floor, Nock instantly howled in a terrible pain that left Kot crawling over to aid him in shock. Slowly opening her eyes in a dazed state, Jida glanced for both Core and Nock, her vision fuzzy and ears ringing. Yet it was then, another sensation came to her, a warm and wet sensation from below. Looking down, Jida found herself to be sitting in a puddle of glowing, purplish blue liquid that shimmered with the essence of space itself. For a second, she wasn't sure as to what it was, only for it to then dawn upon her the second after. Kor's attack had caused her water to break, meaning only one thing: the baby was on its way.
No. Oh, no, 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 no!
Jida gasped out as her body began to shake with dread.
Mama?
Joey squeaked out as she and Pavnu leapt from the fuse box.
Knock?
She then asked, looking to the mechanic's panicking form while Kot attempted to stop the bleeding from his stump. Rushing over, Pavnu whined upon Jida's shaking form as her constellation patterns began to flare up with both oranges and blues. Looking back forward towards her father, Joey scowled and stood in front of everyone, proceeding to ignite her horns, forehead, and hands into a light matter essence.
Leave them alone!
She wailed, halting Kor in his tracks.
Joby.
The elder Novason asked as both father and daughter locked eyes.
Please! Please don't do this! Uncle Void says there's good in you! Show me that you can be good!
Joey whined out as tears fell from her eyes.
Please, Father! I love you.
Joey choked out, completely halting Kor in his tracks. For the first time in a very long time, Joby expressed the 3 words that Kor had not heard in oh so long. Although Joby felt disdain for her dear old dad, there was still a part of her deep down that loved him.
I don't want you to be a monster anymore. Please, stop.
Joby continued to cry, leaving Kor falling to that of a numbing and conflicted stare.
Joby.
He began to speak, right as a glint of blue caught his massive eye. Launching out of the fuse box in a deep blue crimson glow, Void delivered a mighty kick to Kor's abdomen and began to yell with fury. You hear that, Kor? She loves you! I love you! And we don't want you to do this! Looking up, everyone who had been thrown aside stared in awe upon Void's powered-up form. From the creases in his metal to even the pores in his skin, Void shimmered with the most powerful essence of spark-like energy that none of the others had ever seen before. Dark blue, glowing electricity erupted off his body with every hit and kick that struck Kor's form, that looked to even shock the older Novason himself.
I can't! Not after everything I've worked for!
Kor cried back as the 2 brothers began to clash with each other in an equal set of blows.
I made a promise to myself, to all those who died that night, that I would fix what happened, no matter the sacrifice. What will we have if it's discarded for nothing?
Kor bellowed as visible burning tears fell from his eyes. Us! Kor! You'll have us! Void tried to reason as blasts of orange and blue shattered the glass from all around, creating a mighty downpour of fizzling shards into the wind. Us as well! The voice of Atlas suddenly called as both him and Evelyn appeared from a star-shaped portal above. Dropping down, the 2 sparks landed upon Kor and delivered some well-needed backup for Void. With a powerful kick, Atlas knocked Kor down, giving Evelyn the chance to strike back in a tail swipe. With conflicted rage fueling his heart, Kor ignited his horns and blew all the sparks off one another. The heat that radiated off his body was that of an eternal flame, a burning soul that struggled to find his footing amidst the chaos. They were getting through to him, Void realized. His tears were a clear sign that they were close. Listen to your heart, Kor. Listen to us. What is it telling you? Void demanded to know as the 4 sparks commenced in a back-to-back 4-way brawl.
That you're all in the way!
Kor bellowed before suddenly taking Atlas by the face and spinning him around in a deadly strike. Dodging out of the way, both Evelyn and Void ducked while Atlas himself twirled out of Kor's grasp and slashed him across the chest. Kor, listen to me. I know you're hurting, but open your eyes. We can't do this. We can't build off our sins. We have to shut it down. Atlas screamed before suddenly getting chokeslammed to the ground.
Shut up!
The older Novason barked as Evelyn leapt upon his back and rammed her tail into his shoulder.
Don't let your scars define you, Core. I know what you saw hurt your soul, but what you're doing, Void's right. It's no different to the glitched.
Evelyn bellowed before Core blasted her off with another dark matter pulse.
You weren't there. You weren't in the school when it burned. I watched the future crumble before my very eyes. Our future.
Core bellowed out as Void leapt back in with another powerful punch to his face. What about this world's future? This world's legacy? What about those who are no longer out there because of you? Stop being a hypocrite and open your eyes! Void bellowed as he delivered punch after punch to Core's body. Even if you were to bring back the sparks, the guilt would forever remain. Unless you stop now and do the right thing. For us. For Joby. For you. Void bellowed out while raising his matter extractor up high.
No!
Core roared out with another pulse, throwing Void off balance, and in turn, giving the older brother the advantage.
It's too late to change!
Core cried out again as he reached up and gripped Void's right arm that held the matter extractor's build. Instantly, the older Novasun began to squeeze the little spark's bulky forearm in a tight manner, though fully just beginning to break it. Yelling in pain, Void tried to fight back, but watched in horror as with one painful crush, Core flattened his arm with his molten palm, releasing a spray of blue blood and metal parts to fly into the air. No! Joby screamed, while Jaida called Void's name in a heartbreaking dismay. Running up, the little girl went to save her uncle, only for Core to release a tendril out and wrap his daughter up in a tight and capturing hold. Kicking into a protective gear, Pofnu barked loudly and rushed towards Core's massive build, only for the Matter Beast to retaliate with a powerful surged kick, sending Pofnu flying through the air and landing hard with a whine. Snarling with spilling tears, Core then pulled Void's shattered arm back and tore it away from its spherical shoulder socket, reducing it to chunks of metal, blood, wire, and more to just clank on the floor. Void? Jaida weakly called out as she tried to stand, but winced again to the numbing and burning pain in her stomach. No! No! Not called as he too, along with everyone else, attempted to stand upright. Sweets! Evelyn weakly bellowed as Atlas looked on with horror. Throwing Void to the ground, the blue spark's surge of energy faded as he weakly reached to clutch his shoulder at the impact. Core? Void muttered, trying to hold back sobs of agony.
You left me no choice, Void.
Core cried out himself as he looked down to the remnants of his little brother's arm, noticing a gold cylindrical handle. Reaching down, the older Novasun took hold of its form and squeezed it, activating their father's modified golden spear. Looking back at his little brother, Core approached and kicked him to be on his backside. Looking up with worried eyes, Void stared upon Core's monstrous form that shimmered within the glimmering yellow sunset that peeked in between the storm's barrier. The look of two halves stared back at him through Core's singular looming eye, but to Void's dismay, the look of pure darkness seemed to peek back through in a larger light.
I'm sorry, but if you're not with me,
Core began as he gripped the spear in both of his hands.
Then you'd be better off with Mother and Father,
he said in a cracking voice while beginning to raise the weapon up high, aimed right for Void's chest. Everyone around looked on with horror to their hearts, as Core looked to deliver a killing blow upon his own brother. Jaida's and Joby's hearts felt a snap, as everyone else attempted to stand, but crumbled under their own pains and wounds. I love you. Void choked out as tears fell from his eyes. Looking down upon his brother, Core is more than ready to stab the blade into Void's chest to get rid of the unexpected foil in his plan. But as Core stared into his brother's eyes, all he could see was the little boy he used to play spear fight with when they were both younger. The boy he would make pasta for. The boy that loved him with all his little heart. And the boy who was the last remnant of a family past he was so desperate to revive. Closing his eyes, Core released a powerful yell and brought the spear down in a powerful and mighty strike. However, instead of stabbing Void, he lodged the weapon's tip down at his side rather than inside of him, creating a silencing echo that falls shortly after. Falling to his knees and leaning against his father's spear, Kor's large and monstrous form slowly reverted back to that of his regular build. His massive eye faded, his horn shrunk, all up till he reverted into a crumpled shell of the spark he once was. Raising his right hand up, Kor covered his face and gently began to weep into it. His heart was shattered, his mind split down two different roads. It was an awful feeling, a stabbing and cold sensation that seemed to chisel away at his dark matter-infested heart. Being released from her hold, Joey fell and immediately ran to Void's aid, who was, to everyone's surprise, slowly getting up. The dust now settling, and wounds easing over, the others found their strength to stand upon seeing Kor return to normal, seemingly having a change of heart.
You're all tearing me apart. Why can't you see that I'm just trying to preserve our legacy, to save our people?
Kor wept out as Joby embraced her uncle's leg and looked on with horror to what was left of his arm. Jida then stumbled to Void's side, along with Pofnu, who retained a limp.
Why? Why now, after everything I've done? After all the years I spent destroying? Right when I'm on the brink of finishing this nightmare? Why?
Kor exclaimed in a river of sorrow as he fully slumped over on his knees.
Why do I deserve a chance to make amends for my sins?
Kor expressed as everyone else stood before the orange-crested spark, staring upon him with a mixture of emotions. Slowly taking a kneel, Void weakly reached his remaining arm out and retrieved his spear. After retracting it, he then placed his remaining hand over his brother's shoulder. Kor didn't look up to the gesture. If anything, it made him feel worse. It was only then that Void leaned his head forward and rubbed it against Kor's in an emotional display of care. Because you're my brother, and I know deep down that this isn't what you want. Void gently spoke through tears, leaving Kor to look up with a tired and wet face. Your guilt, this promise to right an unexpected wrong, doing all of this, even if it's for our people. It's no different to how our world was taken. Tell yourself it's not all you want. But that is not what we do. You know this. Void went on as he gestured towards the matter vat from behind that shimmered with an almost sun-ray glow of energy. Craning his head down to his side, Kor looked upon the capsule of destruction, and then slowly turned back to not just Void, but everyone who judged him with a mixture of worry, hatred, and compassion.
All I want is the survival of our race. This was the only way.
Kor returned as he closed his eyes in a deep pool of shame. You're wrong. There is another way. Jida suddenly blurted through the crowd. Turning their heads, everyone locked their eyes with the limping, soon-to-be mother as she approached upon the kneeling Sparks. Getting onto her knees, Jida took a long breath and held out her hand, gesturing for Kor to reach out. With a curious stare, the larger Spark eyed Jida and then raised his hand out in silence. Softly, the musician took his metal digits and lowered them down to rest upon her belly, which was now shimmering with an extravagant purple glow beneath her armor. As Kor rested his palm, the sensation and essence of the child within Jida drifted towards him, sending a wave and tingly feeling through his servos, all the way till reaching his heart, feeling as though to melt the darkness that surrounded it. Kor, I wanted to try and tell you, but this is the way we Sparks have to move forward now. To progress, to evolve, to survive. We gotta live on through natural means. Void expressed as Core continued to let the little spark's essence enlighten his soul. Life is a cruel game, and it can change us, even when we think we're in the right. I know this isn't the future you envisioned, but if you open your heart, if you look past the DNA within, you'll see that the future of the Sparks has already been saved. Void assured, while locking his remaining hand around Jaida's and eyeing not just her glowing stomach, but Joby as well. It's small steps, but not every castle starts with a crusade. Sometimes it can just start with the placement of a brick, or perhaps. Void stopped before eyeing everyone around him. A community. Core. If we let life carry us forth this path, then our people will return eventually in a brighter and stronger tomorrow. That can only happen if you shut down the Reformator now. Turning away from Jaida's belly with a deep breath, Core looked upwards with a pair of saddened eyes and spoke up from his trance.
You're saying that if I were to shut down the extractor now, you would excuse my actions?
Core asked with a concerned look of disbelief. Excusing them is not the lesson to be learned, Core. It's to learn from one's mistakes. To make a better choice. A choice that I know you can make. Void stated before fully standing to his feet, along with Jaida, although now with a limp. In the heat of battle, I've seen many soldiers turn from one side to another. They became allies, friends, family. Sarv hooted as she held Tucker's hand and eyed him with a past memory. A whole enemy clan turned their ways in my world. They proved themselves that anyone can do a good thing if they wish to try. People can change. Even you. Coco then exclaimed while throwing her arms into the air.
Core, we're all responsible for what we've done. But these people, this found group of individuals, they're giving us an opportunity to right our wrongs, to fix the mistakes that have been a looming shadow for oh so long.
Alice exclaimed while gripping upon the beads around his neck.
But it's the path we need to follow.
Looking down at his hands, Core felt a numbing sensation fill his heart. Was all of it for nothing? He thought. What was it all for? How could they accept him now after everything he did? Was he truly worthy of living after all that he had done? Core's head was like a spinning blender. So many thoughts, years worth of conflicted messages and motives, smashing together in a messy convulsion, leading to just one question escaping his lips.
Why? Why spare me?
With a weak smile, Void put his hand out and gestured for Core to take it. Because we're sparks. We help people. Especially our own kind. With stunned eyes, Core looked up to everyone. Although some were hesitant, most could see the gears turning within the older Novuson's mind. In that moment, Core realized what he had truly wanted all along. He had been saying it, but never truly realized it. He wanted people to call his own. Real people to call his own. A true community. A true bond. He wanted to have a genuine family again. Reaching up, Core took Void's hand and was held back upon his feet. Together, the two brothers locked eyes and mitts, leaving Joby to stare at her two father figures above. Joby, although loving her biological father somewhere deep down, couldn't deny that she felt safer with her uncle. And Core quickly realized this and accepted it as fact. Swiftly turning his head back up, Core locked his eyes with all those he had hurt. Alice's shattered build, Nox's injured stare, the bruises and scars that the others would now retain forever. It was in that moment that he truly felt sick with himself. Turning, Core then looked out over the damaged city, feeling immediately reminiscent to Salvaheim's fall. It was as though a current of selfish thoughts had been fully pulled back, leaving the older Nova son shell-shocked by his actions for the first time in a long time.
What have I done?
He gruffed out, just as a loud sound erupted from behind. Turning their heads, everyone watched in horror as a loud buzzer erupted and dropped the matter vat down with such speed it took everyone aback.
T-minus 5 minutes till extraction.
A voice buzzed out that seemed to take the air out of everyone above. "No!" Joey cried out as Void and the rest looked on with pure dismay at what just happened.
Oh no!
Atlas croaked while Evelyn covered her mouth portion of the mask.
Tears might! We're too late!
She shrieked as a deep wave of sorrow engulfed Void and the others' hearts. "Oh, Clips! Oh, Clips, 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 Clips!" Coco shouted with worry, while Tucker merely sat in silence. "No, no, no! Jida cried out in pain as she fell upon her knees with her arms wrapped tightly around her stomach.
Jida?
Void asked as he weakly knelt beside her. Void, the baby's coming," she muttered, making the situation 10 times worse. Falling to silence, Cor let the panic around him fall to that of a muffled call, as a singular thought took over his mind. "No more," he softly said to himself within, before his eyes widened and his senses returned back to normal. "No more," he repeated to himself aloud before looking to the family that was willing to give him a second chance. A family that deserved to live upon a world that was deserving of life. Activating his portal opener, Cor shot a blast into the air that led to a lower sector of the city. In response, everyone looked to this aura, and then the Cor, who held a stern and serious face on display.
There's still time to shut it down. For that to happen, one of us has to go in, but with no chance of getting back out.
Cor explained as his face fell to that of a depressed stare.
All of you need to go. Now.
Eyes widening with a heavier weight of anxiety, Void stood and muttered with a single phrase. "No." Walking up, both Alice and Evelyn stared on with disbelief towards their friend, before speaking up as well.
Cor, you'll die.
Alice choked out.
"If you force stop it now, you and the whole reformatter could implode, or be transported into a reality with no means of getting back. The mixture of matter could warp you to Matira knows where."
Evelyn expressed with a panicking breath that only left Cor responding aloud.
It doesn't matter what happens to me now. I've drug you two through the dirt long enough, and shattered many hearts for one day.
Cor explained as he eyed Void and his side of the coin, all while Joby stared on in disbelief to her father-son decision.
No, not again!
Void wept out as he helped Jida stand to her feet.
"I'm not gonna lose you again! There has to be another way!"
Void whined, leaving Cor to slowly approach and kneel down to his height level.
Void?
Cor asked, for his little brother to only retort again.
No, let me help you shut it down! Don't go down there by yourself! I can't lose you again!
Void wept as Jida sadly placed a hand upon his shoulder for support. Reaching his hands up, Cor lifted Void's face upwards to be eye level with his, and began to speak up once more.
Void, your story doesn't end with you dying by my side. None of yours.
Cor expressed as he eyed everyone before him.
If I were to take a guess, it's only just begun.
Looking to Jida's stomach, Cor eyed it with a sense of hope before resetting his sights upon Joby, and then back to Void.
I now realize that I've made too many mistakes to turn a new leaf, and I'm the only one powerful enough to resist the energy pulse below.
Cor continued as he pressed his forehead against Void's.
You have come a long way from the little boy I played with outside, and now I realize it's time for you to spread your wings and be the father to the next age of sparks. The real sparks that I was too blind to see.
Core expressed, causing his younger brother to lunge forward and hug him tightly.
T-minus 3 minutes.
The voice boomed again as the two brothers slowly pulled back from one another. I love you, Core. Void choked out as his tears poured down.
I love you too, Void. Thank you.
Core replied back before looking down to Joby, who shied away with her own tears.
Take good care of her for me.
Core asked as he gently raised his finger and wiped his daughter's tears for what could have been the final time. Slowly standing back to full height, Core looked at everyone and gestured for them to cross through the portal.
Core,
Atlas tried to speak, but was only met with a raised hand.
Go, Atlas. All of you. This is my choice.
Core asked again, which in turn got the others to move on their feet. Leaving first, when both Tucker and Sarv, then Alfred and Coco, Nock carried by Cot, and then the begrudging Atlas and Evelyn, who knew it was time to say goodbye. Before they left, however, the two sparks approached and embraced Core, who silently hugged back for a final time. Soon enough, he pushed them on their way, leaving only Void and Jida, who were being held up by Jet, Pofnu, and Joby.
Void?
Core asked as he looked upon his brother for what could have been the final time.
Show her the sunset for me.
Is all Core asked, leaving his younger brother to nod and wipe his tears. Of course, Core. He replied, as Jet slowly but surely dragged them through the portal, leaving both Void and Joby to be the last ones to eye Core, resulting in Joby saying one soft thing before crossing through. Dad.
T-minus 2 minutes.
The intercom exclaimed once more, leaving Core to perk up with a heart-changing wince. Turning around, he gazed upon the large hole within the reformattor's top, bursting with waves of hot orange light and rays of energy that would destroy everyone below his feet. Scowling to the massive mistake he had made, Core activated his battle mask and rushed the large dropping point. Without hesitation, Core leapt forward and dropped down to the massive chasm below. Extending his elbow spikes, the older Novasun slashed into the walls to slow his several-story fall, going down and down till coming upon the massive vat that was locked back into its regular station spot. Retracting his spikes, Core went to land on top of the large machine, but was suddenly hit with a heavy orange pulsation of matter power that sent him sprawling in front of the machine and nearly over the ledge. Turning at the nick of time, Core transformed his hand into its matter form and clawed himself into the massive metal flooring, slowing his stop till dangling over the ledge. With a grunt, Core slowly pulled himself back up to a standing position and eyed the vat of matter, now about 30 feet from where he stood. The labs that surrounded its form were now sealed off by large metal blast doors, as the entirety of the reformatter illuminated with a bright and fiery light.
I'll fix this,
Core said to himself as he began to march towards his creation.
I will fix this.
Calling upon the same words that started his mess after Salvaheim's fall. As Core trudged forward, the heavy vat of matter swirled with both hot winds and powerful pulsations that stuttered Core in his steps. However, the older spark carried forward, determined to make his final act that of a sacrifice to protect the ones he loved and the world they called home. With another powerful pulse, Core's mask was ripped away from his face, leaving him to stumble back, yet keep pushing on. With his left hand now outstretched in front of his face, Core winced through the burning heat that chipped away at his body. Parts of his orange paint began to flake off, even some of his metal body started to melt. Yet, he still continued on.
Mother, Father, everyone, if you're listening, I'm sorry.
Core said aloud, now having to extend matter from his feet to just stay upright.
If this is my final act, don't let it overshadow the pain I've dealt. Wherever I go, be it a realm or an afterlife, my sins must be accounted for.
Kor continued as he now stood before the matter vat, seeing his reflection in its shiny capsule. His body was dripping, chipping away. Even his face was starting to burn over.
I was blinded by guilt, only then to shy away from the fact that I had become a monster. If this is my end, let me save lives instead of taking them. Please, be with me. Give me your strength.
Raising his arms forward, Kor began to focus all of his energy, relying on his natural essence, mixed with that of his matter abilities. Using it all, Kor began to extend and expand his limbs, releasing tons of matter out of his body to begin wrapping around the capsule he had spent years to fuel. The comm stuttered, only pushing Kor to work faster. From out of his body extended what had to be hundreds of feet worth of dark matter, sticking to the walls and everything within. Using this, Kor began to pull and tear the metal around him apart, all while wincing with pain as he forced his body to go beyond its limits. With several dark tendrils now around the matter vat, Kor began to both squeeze and pull, causing the glass to crack and liquid to spill. Tighter and tighter Kor grasped, pulling and tugging out power cables and internal machinery, sending an alert horn to arise within the speakers. Red flashing lights then began to blare as Kor pushed on and on to destroy the reformatter's powerful structure. With another splitting crack, sprays of orange matter went flying out, creating wisps of multiple colors and even releasing the conductors back into the air. Round and round the orbs went as Kor weakly looked on at his own reflection. All he wanted to do was set things right, but in his quest to do as such, he lost himself and his morality, a fallen hero, as one would say. Even if there had been another way, Kor would have been too ashamed to stay around the people that helped him. He would rather die than live the rest of his days regretting his actions. And if it meant doing so to save his loved ones, then it shall be.
For those we lost, and for those we honor.
Kor boasted as everything began to collapse around him. Yet, before his vision faded, Kor could have sworn that within his reflection, both his mother and father were behind him, smiling with a look of approval to his actions. Whether they were ghosts or hallucinations, it didn't matter, for a sense of true peace washed over the spark. With a small smile, Kor closed his eyes and accepted his fate. Whether he died or survived, it didn't matter. He had done it, knowing in his heart that although in a different light, the sparks would survive, with Void, Joby, and the newborn to soon arise. This comforting thought washed over Kor's soul as everything went white. Landing back outside and beside a crumbled over building, Void and the others turned their heads and gazed upon the reformatter in the distance, all watching as it began to smoke and electrify with beautiful pulses. Round and round its rings went, now igniting to life with an array of colors. Like a rainbow of endless energy, the reformatter's form began to burst and stutter. It sparked and smoked, all while the chained anchors snapped away from the set of explosions above. It was then something truly remarkable happened. As the colors of matter began to glitch and stutter into the skies above, it appeared that their combined energy sent a shift in reality, creating a portal or wormhole of some sort. For from above the craft, ripped open a tear that was ignited by the multicolored strands of matter. In awe, Void slowly raised his hand towards the craft, knowing he couldn't do anything. Kor had made his choice for them. As the spike below the reformatter neared its blast point, strands of multicolored electricity began to latch down from the tear in the sky and pull chunks of the breaking apart machine into wherever it had created for itself. Like a ship splitting in two, the once mighty reformatter shattered apart at several spots, falling upwards to the portal that seemed to act as a vacuuming wormhole. Explosion after blast came and went, all up until the last second, where the reformatter's spike ignited with life, but was cut short as it crossed through the portal, resulting in one large multicolored boom to erupt across the sky in a beautiful display as it all sealed above. Goodbye, Core. Void quietly muttered as his face fell to a saddened stare, alongside Atlas, Evelyn, and of course Joby. Jai and the rest also looked upwards in a small sorrow to where the reformator had vanished. All watching as the large storm from around faded, along with the remaining ameliorates, falling that to ash and muck. As all was slowly cleared, a visible sunset cracked itself over the horizon, shining upon the city and world that was saved by mere seconds. Core had done it, but at the possible cost of his life, leaving Void and his fellow Sparks silent in a mourning state. Whoa. Coco croaked out as she took notice of things slowly falling from the sky. Taking notice as well, everyone caught the sight of what looked to be bottle-sized, transparent, and misty water droplets falling from above. They ranged from every color one could think, appearing to be little spirits, or something of that nature, all drifting down from the explosive energy that had traversed across the sky. Falling down further, Void and the rest took notice of what looked to be small white eyes within their forms, as they all drifted around the air in a curious nature. What the? Void asked as he held out his finger to one of these strange creatures, feeling a small connection to them. A spark-like connection. What are these things? Kot asked as he held a dazed and tired Nock in his arms. Holding out their hands, both Atlas and Evelyn caught some of these specters and watched them bounce and drift around in their hands.
It's matter, taken form.
Joby then stated, catching a yellow one and gently holding it.
This is the life force Father extracted. This is their first stage. These would have become the new sparks if this world was drained. As for what they are now, I don't have a clue.
Joby revealed before gently tossing the small spirit back into the air. In stunned awe, Void watched as these little beings drifted through the sky, while the people of Aurora, along with the crescents and ripples, arose from the smoke, helping one another and even cheering in a victorious cry. However, it was then Jida made a groaning call that reminded everyone to the next situation at hand.
Void.
She groaned while leaning against a stone pillar.
Jida!
Void called as he ran his one-armed self over to stand beside her.
Oh, Bazes!
Sarv cried as she and everyone else surrounded the musician. Even Warnog had landed to the ground and dropped Aunt Delilah to the group.
What's going on?
The large axolotl called while Warnog slowly wrapped himself around the group, sensing that a baby carrying his powers was about to be born. Once done, the large snake heated himself up in a calming warmth to help ease his fellow fire wielder, all while everyone else began to do the same.
Easy now, Miss Woods. Take slow breaths. In and out.
Alfred expressed while waving a hand over Jida's head, giving her a small dose of a pain-relieving spell.
By the gods, is there anything you need me to do?
Coco worriedly asked as Jed approached and stood in front of his makers.
You can start by stepping back. This is no natural birth. It could actually be pretty dangerous for all of us.
Jed revealed while Jida gripped Void's remaining hand tightly, breathing in and out like a panting dog. What do you mean by that? Void questioned with a concerned stare as everyone looked on with worry.
So, after doing some scans, it appears that the matter energy within the reformator, as well as encountering the conductors, has caused the child to accelerate his arrival process. He isn't gonna come out naturally, Jida. You're gonna have to warp the baby out. If not, a natural birth could result in a cosmic backfire and essentially kill us all.
Jed explained, leaving Jida to open one of her eyes and strain.
You're kidding me, right? How do I even...
She asked, leaving Jed to shrug with a worried face.
You're Jida freaking Woods. You can do it!
Nock blurted through tired and blood-lost breath, leaving the others to nod.
You've been through worse. I believe you can do it too, lass.
Tucker expressed while holding on to Sarv's feathery hand. Focus your energy, sweets. Just breathe. Evelyn then chimed in as both her and Atlas watched on with confident stares. Slowly approaching, Joby stood beside her mother and rested her hands upon her stomach, sending a wave of her light matter energy into her soul.
I'll do my best to ease the pain,
she said, while Void continued to hold onto her hand in a comforting manner.
You got this. I know you can do it,
he assured as he pressed his head against his wife's. Taking in a long breath, Jida nodded, then squeezed Void's hand hard. It was time.
Okay, here we go,
she exclaimed before shutting her eyes and using all of her energy to focus upon the child in her stomach. Like a light, Jida ignited with an orange hue that slowly began to shift into that of purple, like blues. With a pained grunt and stutter, Jida ceased her energy for one moment, but then continued to push again, all while tears and sweat poured down her eyes. There you go. Just like that, Void assured in a comforting tone, all while feeling Jida's hand practically crush his. Energy spikes are rising. Does someone have a cloth? Jet asked as he prepared for the little one's arrival.
Here, use my scarf,
Sarv said while taking off a yellow scarf around her neck and handing it to Jet.
Perfect. Okay, Creator, just keep breathing and pushing. You got this.
Jet exclaimed with confidence as everyone stared on with worry. Closing her eyes, Joby sent wave after wave of her pain-relieving essence into Jida's body, all while she continued on with breathing heavily and pushing. Across Jida's skin, constellations burned the life, going from bluish purple to orange like a flickering light bulb. During this process, the scalp section of Jida's hair turned to that of a deep shade of glimmering black, looking to permanently dye her hair into a darker shade at the top. It was then cosmic electricity began to pulse across her skin, shocking everyone to the energy spikes coming off her build. Jida was now like a burning bulb of power, flashing between oranges and blues, all while groaning and yelling, leaving Void to hold on strong. You got this, Freckles. Just a little more. He encouraged her on, leaving Jida to breathe in once more and push with all her might. From her body, a familiar sound began to arise, one that Void and the other sparks recognized. The hum. The powerful hum that would release a wave of energy.
Oh shit. Back! Everyone get back!
Alice shouted as he and Evelyn quickly leapt out of the way, leaving Sarv and Tucker, Coco and Delilah, Alfred and the rest, except for Void, Joby, Jet, and Pofnu, to stand on by and brace for impact. With one more powerful yell, Jida opened her eyes, her grayed out corners burning to that of a permanent orange around her whites, and released a pulse of dark blue power that caused everyone to close their eyes and cover themselves. Opening their eyes, Void, Jida, and Joby looked at one another, all while Pofnu huddled beside them. Breathing in and out, Jida slowly leaned her head back against the stone pillar, while suddenly feeling a wave of exhaustion. You okay? Void asked as he waved the dust away while eyeing his wife. Wincing, Jida took another breath and stared tiredly towards her husband. Yet, before she could say anything, a sound rang out that sent the spark and musician falling silent with butterflies in their stomachs. Turning their heads back forward, the two parents along with Joby and Pofnu stared on to the dust as Jet slowly stood, his shadow looking to quickly wrap something, or rather, someone in Sarv's scarf. With slow steps through the fading smoke, Jet approached and re-emerged into the light, now carrying what was without a doubt a wailing infant within his metal arms. My creators, congratulations. It's a boy. Jed expressed with a happy smile as everyone reapproached with stunned stares. With wide and silent eyes, both Void and Jida quietly raised their arms out and both gestured to see their child. Without stalling, Jed approached and handed their newborn over, letting his parents take hold of him for the very first time. As the baby was wrested into his mother's arms, Void and Jida were immediately struck with a wave of emotions. Their child had that of Jida's human body, but the round head and horns of his father. The baby's skin was that of a grayish shade of deep blue, while his horns retained a more vibrant blue, in the same spots and shapes as Void's. On the sides of his cheeks were identical freckles to Jida's, and his eyes were a mixture of whites and purples. The second the little sparklet laid his oval-shaped eyes upon his parents, a wave of calmness washed over his body, turning his once worried sobs to that of calming coos and goos from his little mouth. In stunned silence, Void's mouth quivered upwards into a smile as tears fell from his eyes, while Jida began to break down with pure joy. Jay, she softly expressed with a deep form of love, before leaning her head down and kissing his forehead. Oh my god. She choked out before falling to happy tears and leaning in the Void's side, leaving the one-armed Spark to embrace his wife and newborn. Jay. He quietly gasped out with happy tears as well, watching as the little baby reached his tiny hands out for his father. Leaning forwards, Void, with the gentleness of a feather, pressed his forehead against his son's, and at last felt their connection unite. Hi, he greeted, leaving the baby Spark the giggle to his father's voice. With everyone now surrounding the three, Joey raised her hand forward and gently caressed the side of her cousin's cheek.
Hi, little guy.
She said with a smile and giggle. He's so cute. Coco stated the obvious through weeps, while everyone else just smiled with both joy and relief. I guess I'm an uncle now. I'd be more excited if I didn't have my hand cut off. Nock groaned through a daze, all while Cot tried to comfort him. Approaching forwards, both Atlas and Evelyn leaned down and smirked upon the baby, realizing that the sparks would indeed continue. But without them. Take good care of them, Void. Atlas suddenly stated before turning and shooting a portal open into the side of the wall. Turning with a curious stare, everyone eyed the Spark couple, leaving Void to ask, Wait, where are you two going? Looking at one another, the two Sparks nodded and then replied with exhausted voices. Somewhere that isn't Aurora. We've left a bad mark here. To stay would only make things worse. Alice explained as he held the beads around his neck, and then smiled. But we won't be too far off. Thank you. Alice finished before Evelyn approached the smaller Spark and gave him a well-needed hug. For everything. She added before the two backed off and stood by the portal that seemed to be heading for Leo. I understand. See you soon? Void asked, leaving the two Sparks to smile at him once more, and then closed the portal without a clear response. Looming back down to his little Spark, Void slowly stood and helped Jida as well, who was now carrying their newborn. Looking out towards the city, they all watched as Warnog moved out of the way and soared into the air, roaring with triumph as he did. So, what now? Jida asked as she held her baby close and nuzzled into his little face. Looking at his found family, and then to his kid, Void took a long breath and returned his sight towards the people of Aurora, who were all now helping one another out of the rubble and damage. We rebuild as one. Void replied before activating his arm cannon and firing a blue flare up into the sky, alerting those from around to regroup and combine their efforts to fix and start rescue missions for those who hadn't been saved yet. There was a whole city in ruin, and only together they would be able to fix it. As the people began to approach, Void and his allies stood side by side, not feeling victory or defeat, but a sense of hope. Going forward from this day, they knew things would never be the same, but only together they would persevere into the next tomorrow. It's what Void told himself as his little son, Jay, stared down with awe to the world around himself. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Rowing down the river stream within their canoe, Void paddled himself, Jida, Joby with Fluppy, Pofnu, and now Jay through a beautiful March scenery. It had been a whole month since the events that transpired within Aurora. To say a lot had happened within those short 30 days would have been an understatement. The snow had finally and fully melted, leaving the early signs of spring to come on through. The sun began to set over the horizon after what was another long day of helping the people of Aurora with the reconstruction progress to their city. To say the least, the group was exhausted. Reacting with a little giggle, Jay waved his small arms towards his mother and her words, leaving the musician to blush and giggle back to her and Void's child that was bundled up in an orange blanket within her arms. Looks like someone else enjoys your singing. Void stated with a small smile as he continued to row his family along the calm waters. Apparently so. I just can't get over how stinking cute he is. Yes, you are. Jida replied with a wide smile before tickling her baby with a single finger. Nodding his head with a smirk, Void looked to his side and watched as Joby drifted her hand into the water. The little girl was now wearing a pair of jeans and yellow long sleeves, while having a new and curious wonder to the world. Void was still in his white and blue attire, but Jida was now wearing a mixture of black and orange sweat clothes. Although spring was near, it was still a tad cold, so it was better to be safe than sorry. How's your new arm holding up? Jida asked while eyeing down Void's right arm, which had been replaced by one of his older models. After lifting stones and sandbags all day, I was expecting it to actually break off again. I gotta say, Nox location stations really came in handy on that front. Void replied, rowing them forward once again. No kidding. Also, speaking of Nock, did you hear? He's actually thinking about running for mayor in the next election. Jida asked, leaving Void to perk up with a raised eyebrow. What? Wow, really? Man, I swear, after he lost his hand, he's been in a complete protective mode. Can't say I blame him though. But if he does run, he's got my vote. Void replied as he rested his paddle on his lap and allowed for the waves to carry them on. I gotta say, I'm still surprised at how relaxed the city was about our identities being revealed. Void began, thinking on another subject to bring up. Well, when the last surviving cop says we saved his life, along with having 2 ex-military companions, I think it's safe to say that we kind of got a cheat sheet card. Because the amount of car crashes I ended up causing in the past would have left me in debt hell. Jida responded, leaving Void the chuckle. No kidding. He replied with a roll in his eyes when Joby suddenly spoke up. What's that? She asked, pointing towards the air, and add an insect. That's a butterfly, Sweet Pea. Void answered when Joby asked again.
And that?
She questioned, pointing towards some animals at the riverside. Those are deer, dear. Jada replied with a smirk, leaving Void to roll his eyes again.
Wow. I never really realized how cool other worlds were. I'm happy we saved this planet, Father.
Joby stated towards Void, giving him a sense of love to fuel his heart. Although still her uncle, Joby over time came to call Void as father or dad from time to time. It wasn't common, but when it happened, all Void could feel was an ever-present warmth in his heart. Oh, Blue, we're here. Jaya stated aloud as they neared the shoreline that led up to the now completed cabin.
Come on, we're gonna miss it.
Joby squealed with a smile while leaping out of the boat, leaving poor Gluppy to just dangle off her back as per usual. Hey, wait up, Speed Racer. Void chuckled out with a smile as he fully docked the boat. Leaping out as well, Pofnu bounded herself after Joby, while both Void and Jida stood upon the shore.
Hang on, sweetie.
Jida called as both her and Void followed suit. Running up to the cabin, Joby launched herself upwards with a light matter pulse and landed upon the roof. Following after, Pofnu sprung herself up and landed beside the little girl, licking her giggling face in the process. Man, we still can't thank the people of Aurora enough for finishing the cabin for us. I can't get over how pretty it is. Jida expressed, leaving Void the shrug. If anything, I think it was them saying thanks to us, but who knows? He replied with a smile, before Jida smirked back and warped both herself and Jay to sit beside Joby and Pofnu. Extending his arms up, Void lashed upon the roof side and pulled himself up and over, landing and sitting in between everyone. Leaning her head at her right side, Jida with Jay close by rested upon Void's shoulder, while Joby found comfort upon Pofnu. Together, they looked past the running water and trees, focusing upon a grand sunset that bloomed over the land. Staying true to the Corps' final request, Void and his family would at least once a week take the time out of their day to watch the sun fall over the lands, making it a tradition in a sense. Raising his arms up, the spark embraced both Jida, Joby, Jay, and Pofnu to his sides, feeling a true sense of peace in the moment. In a way, Void Novasun felt as though he had come full circle. From being down on his luck, alone and depressed, living a quiet and deadly life in a rundown apartment had changed to him being happy, having a family of his own, and a real place to call home. Of course, there were many bumps in the road, but in the end, Void could only describe himself in one word: grateful. Wow, it's a beautiful one this evening. Jida expressed, gazing upon the glorious ray of light from afar. Yeah, it really is. Void returned as he and the others continued to stare at the beautiful ray of sunlight that fell over the horizon. As the spark and his family continued to take in the love of life, something within the cabin began to stir ever so gently. Within its basement, tucked away in a box of moving supplies, was the one and only Lotus Cube. Although still small and harmless, the little item, ever so faintly, began to glow with a shade of pulsating blue within, responding and syncing to a tiny heartbeat from outside. The heartbeat of Jay Voidson.